on Jerusalem Dateline. This week on Jerusalem Dateline, runners from around the world converge on Jerusalem for its annual marathon.
And for me, Jerusalem Marathon is showcasing the city.
Plus, will U.S. President Donald Trump make good on his pledge to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem? And the Church of the Holy Sepulchre gets a facelift. The place many believe is the site where Jesus rose from the dead. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell, coming to you from the beginning, the start line of the 7th annual Jerusalem Marathon with Joseph from Connecticut, right?
That's correct.
And you have on your thing, it says, Mashiach will beat us to the finish line.
Be'etzem Hashem, please God, he will.
Amen.
That would be a successful race for me if Mashiach beats me.
That's right. And so this is the start line, and thousands of runners from all over the world have converged on the city. And as CBN's Julie Stahl tells us, it's not just a sporting event, but a spiritual one too.
This is the 7th annual Jerusalem Marathon, the largest yet. More than 30,000 runners got up very early this morning to take part in this marathon and other races.
3,500 runners from over 60 countries around the world, and you have to listen to what they're saying. They are, before they run, they're into the spiritual event, not only the sportive event.
This is not just a marathon. It's a sign. The time has come for me to visit. Whatever I felt that I would feel is really nothing compared to what I feel today.
Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barakat had the idea for the marathon as a way to draw people to the city who wouldn't have otherwise visited. This year, they're marking the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem.
And for me, Jerusalem Marathon is showcasing the city.
And you know, it became like a whole happening where families and kids and children, and it gave motivation for all the city to start run.
Runners choose from the marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K, or a race for families.
We all got up at 5 in the morning to get here early to be running in the beautiful Jerusalem atmosphere.
The different tracks take runners past the ancient walls, through the old city, along historical routes and through modern neighborhoods, and past the city center. Some ran to support causes, like Rick Raber, who ran for CBN's Operation Blessing.
I read some about the Israeli relief that Operation Blessing has, and I was really, I was delighted to find out that you guys do so much to help the poor of Israel.
Whether they're running for a cause or just for fun, the Jerusalem Marathon is becoming a destination for more of the world's runners.
The marathon is one of the biggest events here in Jerusalem during the year, and I'm here with Henrietta. And are you going to run the marathon in just a few minutes?
Half run, half walk.
Are you going to finish?
Yes.
Okay, and where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey, live in Brooklyn.
You live in Brooklyn, all the way from Brooklyn, New York, where runners have come from all over the world. It's one of the biggest events, as I said. On a political note, one of the biggest stories is whether U.S. President Donald Trump will move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And recently, a U.S. congressional delegation came to say that he will make good on that pledge. The delegation, led by Congressman Ron DeSantis, came here to explore moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
A lot of people thought maybe Donald Trump would do this on day one. He did not do that. Some were disappointed.
DeSantis made it clear that while Trump did not send the group, they would report back to him.
I thought it was important to come out and get some knowledge in the Congress about where this thing will actually be. He's in a position where he's either going to follow his campaign promise or he's going to actually have to sign this waiver.
In 1995, Congress passed the Jerusalem Embassy Act, requiring the U.S. Embassy to be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which, according to Israel, is its true capital. Since then, each president has signed security waivers to prevent the move. The most recent one, signed by former President Obama, expires in May.
I just think, knowing the president, he's been a man of his word. I don't think that he is going to, on the same month where people here in Jerusalem are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jerusalem Day, sign the waiver.
The group toured possible embassy sites here.
DeSantis said he didn't meet with Palestinian or Arab leaders this time, but based on past meetings, he doesn't expect an uproar if the embassy moved.
My sense is if you look at some of the issues that bind our country with, say, some of the Arab Gulf states who may not philosophically agree with this, their main concern is not Jerusalem right now. It's Iran's influence. It's some of the other security threats they face.
According to DeSantis, there are 3 benefits for moving the embassy.
One is truth. We have this historic connection with the Jewish people in the city of Jerusalem.
He noted that Jerusalem is one of the world's most ancient capitals. According to the Bible, King David made Jerusalem the capital of the Jewish people 3,000 years ago.
Two, I do think it's important that the president, having made the pledge, that he follow through with it. And then third is, I think it really showed that America is standing foursquare behind our allies here in Israel.
Well, the marathon has actually began, and as you can see, people are pretty excited about it. Thousands of runners from all over the world have come. Now they're going to be moving as the marathon gets going. Literally thousands of people, they're all staggered together. Well, that story on the U.S. Embassy is one of the biggest diplomatic stories. On a financial side, there's been a multi-billion deal between a startup company here that provides driverless car technology with one of the biggest high-tech companies in the world.
Mobileye maintains its technology already keeps passengers safer on the roads, reducing the risk of accidents and saving lives.
In the event of a possible collision, the system issues an alert, providing you with up to 2 seconds to brake and prevent an accident.
Intel and Mobileye say the $15 billion deal will combine the best technologies of both companies and create computerized driving solutions from the cloud to your car.
Autonomous driving is not just science fiction, it's real.
Entrepreneur John Medved is an expert on Israeli startup companies.
Mobileye, which is our hometown favorite here in Jerusalem, is supplying to somewhere between 80 and 90% of the world's auto manufacturers. They started with collision avoidance, now it's moving into, full-blown autonomous driving stuff.
That includes features like autonomous braking at red lights and for pedestrians, autonomous urban and night driving, as well as a system that senses the driving scene. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the deal proves that Israel is becoming a global technology center. That's not the only plus for Israel. Instead of moving to the U.S., Mobileye plans to keep its main operations here. And rather than being integrated into Intel, it will take charge of Intel's international activity for autonomous vehicles.
The story of the sale of Mobileye to Intel is one of the signs of economic health here in Israel. And as you can see, people are still heading on their way to the start line of the marathon and the half marathon. On the other hand, people are wondering if U.S. President Trump will just maintain the status quo with Israel and the Middle East. But as CBN News' Wendy Griffith asked Joel Rosenberg, Middle East expert, he says that U.S.-Israel relations are better than ever.
Some on the right are concerned that after a tremendous start with President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, that it seems like things might be returning to the status quo. There was talk about immediately moving the embassy to Jerusalem. That seems like it's on the back burner. And now there's been a phone call between President Trump and Palestinian Prime Minister, is it Prime Minister?
President. Yeah.
President Mahmoud Abbas. So there's, what is your take on this? Are things going back to the status quo?
I think that's a bit of hyperventilating about, which seems a little odd. You have the best U.S.-Israeli relationship in 8 years, arguably longer. It seems a little out there to say that suddenly it's all gone back. Look, the President of the United States should be talking to the Palestinians as well as the Israelis, of course. But who was the first regional leader for the president to meet with? It was Prime Minister Netanyahu. There's a very warm relationship. The president has appointed very strong pro-Israel people around him. Vice President Mike Pence is a friend of mine. Couldn't be more pro-Israel than Mike Pence. I mean, that guy is rock solid. So I think that's a little huffing and puffing. Look, the president needs a good working relationship with the King of Jordan, with the President of Egypt, with the Palestinian leaders. I don't know that the president can get what he wants. He wants a full Palestinian-Israeli peace deal. God bless him.
Every president does.
Everybody does, and he is the guy who's the art of the deal. But I just, but he should be talking to them and honoring the Palestinian people who really are in a very difficult spot, honestly.
Let's talk about the Iran nuclear deal.
Sure.
President Trump has inherited that.
Yes, he has.
He said he's going to do away with it. What's your take? How do you think Trump will handle that?
No, he actually has never said, not in the campaign and since, that he would rip up the deal. That was Rubio, that was Cruz, that was everybody else. But he said, look, once you make the deal, it's done. You're ripping up the deal with the Russians and the French and the British and everybody else. I would rip it up. I mean, instinctively. But his point is, we've got to now figure out how to enforce it. His point is, if Iran violates, then you start dealing with the violations, because the whole thing unravels if Iran violates it, right? So that's the president's approach. And a big part of Netanyahu's meetings with Trump was, how do we begin to navigate the monitoring Iran, and then what's the policy, both for the United States, for Israel, and our regional allies, once these, because Iran is already violating it.
Yeah.
And in certain ways, the ballistic missile launches and the tests, they're not part of the Iran nuclear deal, but they are part of other UN resolutions that say they can't test those types of missiles. So this is a big test coming for the president. How am I going to deal with Iran and make sure they don't become an enormous existential threat to Israel and the Saudis and everybody else in the region, and not a threat to the United States?
Up next, one of the most revered sites in Christianity gets a facelift. We're here at the Jaffa Gate, one of the entrances of the Old City and part of the route of the Jerusalem Marathon. It's also about a 5-minute walk from one of the holiest sites in all of Christianity, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the place where many believe Jesus Christ was buried and then rose from the dead. CBN News recently got a behind-the-scenes look at a long overdue restoration inside the church. It's called the Edicule, a structure built over what many believe is the burial place of Jesus. After years of neglect, it's getting a facelift.
The Holy Rock is preserved, and this is a great result of this phase of the project.
Professor Antonia Morapoulou oversees the project.
Of course, now we are going with bolts and anchors, titanium anchors, to readjust the marble slabs upon some mortar and concrete. That means we are going to assure the structural integrity through this intervention.
National Geographic first documented the restoration last year for a television special. This is the marble slab that was removed for the first time in more than 200 years. Beneath that, they found a slab from the time of the Crusaders, and underneath that, a tomb from the 1st century that many believe was the tomb of Jesus. While many consider the Church of the Holy Sepulchre the site where Jesus was buried and rose again, others believe the resurrection took place at the Garden Tomb not far away. Whichever site is authentic, the work is preserving the church for years to come.
We had, of course, to open the Holy Tomb in order to insulate it from the grouts and to protect it.
This number, S3E14, that means S3E14. This is from this place of the monument.
The restoration is like putting a puzzle together. Conservator Theodoros Mavridis explained how they reconstruct the marble slabs surrounding the edicule.
We open holes, we put titanium rods between the two pieces. We are putting the adhesive on the surface inside. We're just joining the pieces together, like this. Okay, and then we have to put the piece vertically, so that the weight of the above, to give the pressure and the stability to put the pieces together in a perfect position.
For those working on the project, it's not a job, but a joy. What were your feelings when the tomb was opened?
Great feelings. We were feeling that working on the tomb of Christ, we were not in just a monument. It's the message of resurrection, is the hope and the praise of millions of people. You feel when you are there, you are in the most alive place in the world.
For my mother or my grandmother, they feel very proud of me. I feel very happy every day to be here. And when the project is finished, then I will be more happy than ever in my life.
The project is expected to be completed by Easter. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City. Christian pilgrims aren't the only ones visiting the Holy Land. See how Israel is home to one of the biggest migrations in the world. We're at another spot on the Jerusalem Marathon. It's a grueling race because of the hills of Jerusalem, but one of the most unique in the world. The runners that come here are also just a fraction. Here we are, here's one of the runners. They're just a fraction of the millions of visitors who come to Israel and the Holy Land each year. But there's another visitor. About 500 million birds migrate through Israel each year. Israel lies on one of the world's major migration routes. And as I found out when I went to northern Israel, it's also a paradise for bird watchers. The Hula Valley hosts millions of birds and thousands of visitors each year.
This is one of the richest sites in the world for bird watching.
Israel sort of is a junction between three continents, and birds that are essentially trying to avoid high mountains, great expanses of water, they funnel through very specific flyways.
Some of these migrating birds fly 2,000 miles in 3 to 5 days without a meal. They fly from Europe and Asia to Africa. For many, Israel is the halfway point. That point is the Hula Valley, part of a 3,700-mile stretch from Syria to Mozambique. The Bible mentions the bird migration as part of a metaphor. Even the stork in the sky knows her seasons, and the turtle dove and the swift and the thrush observe the time of their migration. Some 400 species of birds stop for refueling, and a fraction even winters here, including 30 to 45,000 cranes. Listening to them talk, one can understand why King Hezekiah said he chattered like a crane. In fact, it's not just noise. Experts say crane parents and chicks can actually recognize each other's voices. 20 years ago, there were hardly any cranes here because the natural swamps would drain for farmland. The ground didn't work for agriculture, however, so experts restored part of the lake.
And the answer was essentially to give it back to nature. And so the project has gone sort of in a circle, and we are back to trying to renovate, trying to sort of reproduce what existed here in the past.
That and a special feeding project brought the cranes back, along with the visitors.
This is a wonderful opportunity for us to educate people about birds, about nature. I think that you don't need to be a bird lover when you are coming here, but you are definitely a bird lover when you are going out of this site.
Visitors to Agamon Hahula Reserve can ride the safari wagon into the midst of the cranes. Guides say there's no place else in the world to see so many cranes in such a small area. And bird watchers come from all over to see the phenomenon.
I don't even care if you like birds. You have to experience this and come and see thousands and thousands and thousands of cranes.
If you're a birder, I don't think you could find a better place to come to see the variety of species, as well as the atmosphere and the beauty of the place is just unrivaled in any place in the world.
For now, these cranes are getting ready for the long flight back to Russia or Finland for the summer. But they'll be back next year, along with the bird lovers. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Agamon Hahula. We're back inside the old city to see the runners of the marathon, half marathon, and even a 10K race. Well, recently we brought you a story about how Israel is treating Syrian refugees up on Israel's northern border. And here's a story our cameraman Jonathan Goff put together for our Facebook viewers about this heartwarming story.
Most of the injuries are mid-face, lower face from gunshot wounds, and those who survive, they're being evacuated to us. We treat people and they come in a severe state. You see it in their eyes. They look at us with their eyes and they look for help. They look for compassion. Once we treat them and you see the evolving of trust and they're opening to us, and if we change one Syrian and the second and the third, and they go back to Syria and they will educate their children that they are not so bad.
That's a powerful story of how Israel is helping their neighbors. It's also an example of what you can see on our Facebook page. So please like it and share us with your friends. That's it for this edition. I'm Chris Mitchell. Remember, you can follow us throughout the week on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're a runner, consider coming to next year's Jerusalem Marathon. And we'll leave you with this edition with more sights and sounds from the Jerusalem Marathon.